I'm going to be showing you how to do a real basic leg warmer. The great thing about with this basic leg warmer is you get an idea on the length you want, but you can change up the stitch pattern, and it gives you just a real base to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to cast on all our pegs, and we're going to be working circularly. And I am actually using a worsted yarn. I'm using Heartland, Slime Brand's Heartland yarn, and the gray that they have. And this is the 40 peg sock loom. And the great thing about the 3/8 inch peg spacing is you can still E-wrap if you choose to. But because I want the top and bottom of the leg warmers to be snug, more snug, or you could say, I'm going to be doing more of a flat knit. But the top and bottom are going to be a rib stitch, and that will make them more snug, and then the whole center bit is just going to be a straight out E-wrap that you can do for a real nice leg warmer that's simple. The great thing is you can use a single strand of worsted yarn. And with the whole knitted section, you could actually do whatever stitch pattern you want. You can hunt down the stitch pattern you like and just do it that way. Makes it really easy. So yeah, this is just a basic leg warmer. Give you a general idea on sizing and everything. And then you are free to run with whatever stitch style you want in between the rib stitch. We've done our cast on, and now we want to start our rib stitch, and we're going to use a flat knit to start. Remember, the working yarn is just laying lightly over your ring and pinky finger. And all you're doing is keeping it in the general guide. You lift that bottom loop over, pull back into the center to keep your flat knits loose. So we're going to knit 3, purl 2. And you're going to do this all the way around, and you're going to do this stitch pattern for a total of 15 rows. So go ahead and pause the video and complete 15 rows of the knit 3, purl 2 all the way around, and continue that for 15 rows, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I have done my rib stitch, as you can see here, my 15 rows. And if you want to do a very basic leg warmer, then you're going to just E-wrap. You're going to E-wrap a whole bunch of rows until you get to like 1 foot to 1.5 or 2 feet, depending on how long of a leg warmer you want. And then I will show you how to finish the top. But if you'd like to do something a little fancier, I will show that. and I'm going to show the cable crossing for those of you who would like a more complex pattern. So again, if you want to do a really simple leg warmer, just E-wrap, and I would use a row counter to keep up with how many rows you do to get the length you want, so that when you go to make the other one, it's the same length as the one you decided on. That is my major suggestion there. Now, if you're wanting to do the cable, you'll want to do 2 rows of E-wrap. Great thing about this 3/8 fine gauge loom is E-wrap is possible. But I find if I try to E-wrap too many at once, they can come off all at once if you miss the peg a little bit when wrapping it. Okay, so if you want to do a simple leg warmer, go ahead and pause the video and keep E-wrapping until you're at the length you want. If you're doing the cabling version, I will tell you right now, we're going to be doing a right 2-stitch cable cross, a right 4-stitch cable cross, and a right 6-stitch cable cross. And I'm going to be showing you how to line that up and everything, and I think it's going to look really neat. But the first thing you want to do is E-wrap 2 rows. And you're going to keep that in mind. Between each cable row is 2 regular rows, because I like having a few rows that are just simple, if it's at all possible. Okay, you're going to need a stitch holder, naturally, to do this. So, what I'm going to do is purl 1. Then these 2 are my right cable cross. That's the first one I'm going to be. Every 2 rows, you are crossing these 2 pegs right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to skip that first peg, wrap the second peg, toss the bottom loop over. Hold on, I may have to pull this up. Toss the bottom loop over, place on the stitch holder, take it off the peg, go back, wrap the first one, move it over to the next one, place that stitch from the stitch holder back on to the first peg, and that is a 2-peg right cable cross. Then we're going to E-wrap 4. We're going to keep up with this. So here's 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to count 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're going to count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which means the next 2 stitches need to do a right cable cross. So skip that first stitch, E-wrap the second, toss the bottom loop over, place it on the stitch holder, wrap the first peg, place the first stitch, put it on peg 2, take the second stitch and place it on the peg 1, and snug up your stitches a little bit. Then you're going to purl 1. E-wrap your way back. Once you get back to the beginning, you're going to E-wrap 2 rows, and then I will show you how to do the next row. And you're going to be repeating a section, and I'll tell you when you start repeating the section. So go ahead and pause the video and E-wrap your way back to the starting point, and then E-wrap 2 rows, and then I will show you the next row of cabling. Okay, by the way, I forgot to mention I'm purling at the beginning of the cabling section and at the end of the cabling section, and I can tell you here in just a second. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah. So I'm doing it on the first peg, and the 20th peg I am purling. Okay. Now we're going to do our next row of cabling. We've just done our 2 rows. So we're going to skip the first peg, wrap the second peg, place that on the stitch holder, and you notice we're doing right cabling through all of it, and it's because you can wrap every single stitch before moving it. Hold on. Silly me, did not purl. Before doing that. Sorry. Okay. Alright. Purl the first one. Then skip the first peg, wrap the second peg, toss the bottom loop over, place onto the stitch holder, go back, wrap the first peg, toss the bottom loop over, put the first stitch on the second peg, and the second stitch on the first peg. That's a 2-peg right cable cross. Now we're going to do the 4. So we're going to skip pegs 1 and 2 and E-wrap pegs 3 and 4. And place loop 4 first and then loop 3 on the stitch holder. Take them off and re-wrap pegs 1 and 2 and place loop 2 on peg 4 and loop 1 on peg 3, then place loop 3 on peg 1 and loop 4 on peg 2. And there's your 4-stitch right cable cross. Go in and snug that up a little bit. Now you're going to E-wrap 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're probably noticing I'm not cabling these this round. It's because I'm going to do my cable cross for this the next time I do a cable row. But every cable row I'm doing the end to. So there's my 6. Now my next 4 are going to be another right cable cross. So skip pegs 1 and 2. E-wrap pegs 3. I had to pull those up a little. Pegs 3 place loop 4 on the stitch holder first, then loop 3. And take off the loom, and then E-wrap pegs 1 and 2. Move loop 2 to peg 4, and loop 1 to peg 3. Hold on. Get that out of the way. Then you're going to put loop 3 onto peg 1 and loop 4 onto peg 2, and snug those up a little bit. Nice cabling. Then the next two are your 2 right cable cross, so skip the first peg, E-wrap the second peg, toss the bottom loop over, place onto the stitch holder, E-wrap the first peg, place loop 1 onto peg 2, and loop 2 onto peg 1. Snug up. Purl, E-wrap to start, do 2 rows, purl 1, E-wrap 18, purl 1, E-wrap to the starting point. Do 2 rows of that, and then we'll go in and do our next cabling row. So go ahead and pause the video and complete back to the starting point and 2 more rows, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we're to the last one in the set of cabling. So go ahead and purl that first one. Skip the first peg, E-wrap the second, place it onto the stitch holder, E-wrap the first, place stitch 1 onto peg 2, and stitch 2 onto peg 1. Snug up your pegs. Then you're going to E-wrap the next 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to do the 6 stitch right cable cross. So here's your 6 stitches that we're going to be crossing. So you're going to skip the first 3. 1, 2, 3. E-wrap the second 3. Here's 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to place stitch 6, 5, and then 4 onto the stitch holder in that order. Hold to the center, pick up your yarn to work to the front, E-wraps pegs 1, 2, and 3. Pick up stitch 3, place on peg 6, pick up stitch 2, place on peg 5, pick up stitch 1, place on peg 4, then you're going to pick up stitch 4 and place onto peg 1, pick up stitch 5, place onto peg 2, and place stitch 6 onto peg 3. Then you're going to go in and you're going to snug up your loops so that they look nice and neat, which is what we like to see. Clean cabling. Okay, so there's our right cable cross. Now we're going to E-wrap 4 pegs. So we're going to E-wrap 4 pegs. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 peg right cable cross, skip the first peg, E-wrap the second, place onto the stitch holder, pick up the yarn, E-wrap the first, place onto peg 2, place the stitch holder to peg 1, and snug up loops, and purl. E-wrap your way back to the beginning, do 2 more rows regular, and then start back at the beginning after doing those 2 rows, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be going from part of the video where we're doing the 2 and the 4 cable cross, and then the 2 rows, and then the 2 and the 6 cable crossing, and the 2 rows. So you're going to go from the 2 and the 4 every time as your start of your repeat on this pattern. So go ahead and continue this cabling pattern until you have a leg warmer that's 1 foot to 1.5 feet to 2 feet, however long you want it, and I'll show you how to finish it off after that. Okay, I'm going to show you how to finish off your leg warmer, and there you can see the cabling, but if you did it without the cabling, this is what it should look like. This is what you should have. And we're going to do the other side a little differently than we did here. This is going to be the ankle end, and this is going to be the upper leg end, and we need it to fit looser. So we're going to do the same stitch down here that we did up here, but instead of doing a flat knit, we're going to do the E-wrap. So you're going to E-wrap 3, purl 2 all the way around, and this comes out evenly because it is 40. So E-wrap 3, purl 2, and then you're going to do a slightly stretchy bind off that works well with stuff like this. And I got this cast off style that I'm going to do from Loom a hat, and I will include the link below so that you can get a more breakdown of that tutorial. I think it does really well finishing off socks, gloves, things like this, leg warmers, that kind of thing. So I think it does really well finishing things off, keeping the stretch but not like super stretchy, because when you have the super stretchy stuff, it has a weird finish to it when it's just sitting there. And even when you put it on, sometimes it still has a weird finish to it. And so I like the fact that this particular cast off doesn't have that weird finish, but has a nice stretch to it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But this is a pretty simple pattern. Okay. One more purl and we're ready to start casting off. What you'll need to do is go ahead and pause the video and complete 15 rows, just like you did down here, but you're going to complete 15 rows, and I went ahead and completed my 15 rows. So you'll need to pause the video and go ahead and complete that much. But once you've completed your 15 rows, then you're ready to cast off. And the cast off process is you're going to E-wrap the first 2 pegs, toss the bottom loops over, move that peg over to the previous, toss that loop over, move it over. Now you're going to E-wrap that peg again, and you're going to re-E-wrap the next one, toss the bottom loops over, move that one over to the previous peg, toss the bottom loop over, and move side by side. E-wrap those 2 again, move over to the previous, toss the bottom loop over, move over, E-wrap that peg and the next peg. And you're going to do this all the way around. Snip the end, pull through, and tie it off. And then you'll make 2 of these. Now,